Crazy Eddie was a consumer electronics chain that opened in 1971 and closed for good in 2012. Thank you for your suggestions.
Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Get a video recorder, color TV, large screen TV, video camera, even an audio video component system. Get it all on sale now during Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Remember, we are not undersold. We will not be undersold. We cannot be undersold, and we mean it. So get anything and everything in TV and video. Get it now during Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Crazy Eddie, his prices are insane.
The company was founded in 1969 by Eddie Antar, Sam M. Antar, and Ron Gindy, a first cousin. It operated under the name of Sights and Sounds. Although the discount electronics store was named Sights and Sounds, it was the property of ERS Electronics. ERS stood for Eddie, Rose, and Sam, Rose and Sam being Eddie's parents. At the time, Sights and Sounds sold electronics such as stereos, records, clock radios, and television sets in Brooklyn at regular prices. In 1970, Sights and Sounds was engaged in a bitter legal dispute with manufacturers over fair trade practices, and the company was losing money. Ronnie Gindy did not believe that the company would prevail in its dispute and become profitable in the future, so Mr. Gindy sold 1/3 of ERS to Eddie Antar, who afterwards controlled 2/3 of the company. Eddie Antar's majority ownership of ERS ultimately set the stage for future conflicts between him, his father, and the rest of his immediate family. In 1971, the Sight and Sound store on Kings Highway was renamed Crazy Eddie. Eddie continued his sales tactics with the renamed Crazy Eddie shop, but this time was successful. Eventually, Eddie closed that location and relocated the business to a bigger shop, just a few blocks from Sight and Sound's old location. Since Eddie Antar owned 2/3 of the company compared to his father's 1/3 ownership, he became much wealthier than his father. Eddie Antar was a very charismatic person compared to his stodgy, old-school father. Many family members and close friends felt more comfortable seeking advice and help from Eddie than from his father. Because of his meteoric rise and success in the growing business, Sam Antar was jealous of his son's success, which would lead to future family squabbles. In 1973, Antar opened the second Crazy Eddie location. A third followed during 1975, located in Manhattan. That year, Antar established a corporate main office in Brooklyn, New York. Crazy Eddie stores were famous in the New York metro area for their advertisements, which featured Jerry Carroll as the star. The relationship between the two sides began in 1972 when Carroll was a radio DJ known as Dr. Jerry. Antar had paid for an on-air ad, and Carroll read the chain slogan, "His prices are insane," in an exaggerated and frenetic manner. When Antar heard Carroll's delivery, he telephoned the radio station and told Carroll to say the line the same way every time he read it. In 1975, Carroll began appearing in television commercials for Crazy Eddie. For most of the next 15 years, Carroll performed commercials in the same frenetic manner he had for radio. During the 1980s, more than 7,500 unique radio and television ads were broadcast in the tri-state area. Carroll's acting became so identified with the company that many people thought he was actually Crazy Eddie. The commercials' appeal, ironically, were their abrasiveness. Customers vented in their survey cards, complaining that the spots were so horrible that they never go to their stores. Antar saw this as proof that his marketing worked. After all, the survey cards were only available in the stores. People might get irritated by them, but they remember, one insider once said. Crazy Eddie didn't just attract customers, it became a cultural phenomenon. The commercials were parodied on Saturday Night Live and even featured in movies like Splash. When Antar started opening new stores in the late 1970s, first in New Jersey and Westchester, soon after in Long Island and on East 57th Street in Manhattan, crowds showed up like it was a major event. 20,000 people stood in line for the East Brunswick store, opening in November of 1978, for t-shirts and frisbees and a chance to meet Jerry Carroll in the flesh. If Crazy Eddie's was known for its crazy commercials, they were also known for their family squabbles. Jealousy grew among family members at Eddie Antar's relative success. Sam M. Antar hatched a plan to publicly humiliate his son Eddie in an effort to regain the mantle of patriarch of the Antar clan. On December 31st, 1983, which was known to the family as New Year's Eve Massacre, Sam Antar notified the wife of Eddie that he was going to be at a New Year's Eve party with his mistress. Sam sent his daughter and his daughter-in-law to accompany Eddie's wife to Manhattan and catch Eddie in the act of partying with his mistress. The wife confronted Eddie walking to a stretch limo with his mistress, and a huge street fight erupted between them. Afterwards, Eddie vowed revenge against his father and immediate family members for setting him up, and deep rifts emerged within the Antar clan. Ultimately, Eddie Antar cooled down. Despite their internal rivalries, Eddie Antar and his immediate family had been engaged in a massive fraud for 15 years. Almost from the beginning, Crazy Eddie's management engaged in various forms of fraud. The Antars deliberately falsified their books to reduce or eliminate their taxable income. They also paid employees off the books and regularly skimmed thousands of dollars in cash earned at the shops. For every $5 Crazy Eddie reported as income, $1 was taken by the Antars. In 1979, the Antars began depositing much of this money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in Israeli bank accounts. The Antar family skimmed an estimated $3 to $4 million per year at the height of their fraud. In one offshore bank account, the deposited amount was more than $6 million between 1980 and 1983. By 1983, it was becoming more and more difficult to hide the millions of illicit dollars. The Antars decided that the way to cover their growing fraud was to take the company public. In preparation, Eddie initiated a scheme in 1979 to skim less each year. Since more income was actually being reported, this had the effect of showing drastically increasing profit margins. Despite the misgivings of people closely associated with Crazy Eddie, the company held its initial public offering on September 13, 1984. Shares of the company sold initially for $8. By early 1986, Crazy Eddie's stock was approaching $75 per share. Eddie recruited his cousin, Sam Antar, to assist the company with its fraud. In 1986, he was named CFO of the company. Sammy was informed that there was a $3 million deficit from the previous year's inventory fraud that needed to be hidden. Additionally, he was instructed to find ways to show a 10% growth in sales. One of Sammy's major schemes was a money laundering operation, later known as the Panama Pump. Money that the Antars had deposited in Israeli banks was transferred to bank accounts in Panama. These accounts, opened under false names, then drafted payments to Crazy Eddie. This money was largely used to inflate same-store sales totals for the company. By 1987, Sammy Antar's goal was no longer to show greater profitability, but rather to disguise previous frauds. During fiscal year 1987, they falsified inventories between $22.5 to $28 million. By that time, the stock value had plummeted, and Eddie stepped down as president and CEO. At least to the public he did. He also cashed out his stock options to the tune of $25 to $30 million. Eddie tried to make the company private again, but not before a hostile takeover of the company by Houston-based businessman Elias Zinn. The financial analysts completed their preliminary audit a few weeks after the takeover. They estimated that Crazy Eddie's inventory was short by $40 to $50 million. The final figure was actually $80 million. By June of 1988, Crazy Eddie's suppliers were demanding the liquidation of the company so they could recover money owed to them. The closing of Crazy Eddie began in March of 1989, as the company shuttered 17 of its 43 stores. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. By the fall of 1989, sales were continuing to decrease and the stores were unable to keep items stocked due to lack of supplier interest in the company. Faced with these facts, Crazy Eddie's management decided that the chain was not worth saving. By the end of 1989, the remaining 26 Crazy Eddie locations closed and the chain ceased to exist. The SEC charged Eddie Antar with securities fraud and illegal insider trading on September 6, 1989. Eddie failed to appear in court twice and was arrested. Upon his release, he fled to Israel. Eddie was arrested in June of 1992 on federal racketeering conspiracy charges and was extradited to the United States in January of 1993. Eddie Antar eventually pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges in May of 1996. In 1997, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison, was ordered to pay more than $150 million in fines, in addition to the more than $1 billion in judgments against him resulting from various civil lawsuits. Efforts to recover additional money from the Antar family on behalf of the defrauded stockholders were completed in 2012. Crazy Eddie's trademark and brand was sold, and the company was revived briefly in 2006, but only as an online retailer. It was revived again and failed in 2011. So what are some of your favorite memories of this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. Be sure to hit that like button. Thanks for watching.